Welcome to Storytime with Mr. Warner. I'm going to read you Thief by Malorie Blackman. About the book. You're the new girl in town. You're just trying to fit in. It's not working. And someone accuses you of theft and you think things can't get any worse until you get caught in a freak storm. The next thing you know, you're in the future, being shot at for being out after curfew. You barely recognise your hometown and you're heading for a confrontation from your worst nightmare. Chapter 1. Annie, I can't do it. It'd be stealing. Lydia Henson stared at her friend. Then she smiled uncertainly. You're joking, right? Annie narrowed her eyes. I might have guessed. I said to the others you'd be too much of a coward. You London folk are all the same. All talk, no action. That's not fair, Lydia protested. The two girls watched each other. The silence in the assembly hall was deafening. Look, it's not really stealing, Anne said with exasperation. All you have to do is keep the sports cup in your locker until this time tomorrow. Then just put it back and no one will ever know you took it in the first place. Lydia stared at her own reflection in the glass-fronted cup cabinet. Black plaits tied back in a ponytail and round, worried, dark brown eyes shone back at her. Just an average face at the best of times. But right now, it looked nervous, almost scared. Lydia looked past her reflection into the cabinet. Small, silver-coloured cups for swimming individual achievement. Teamwork and a host of other school activities decorated the walls cabinet's 3 shelves. And there, holding pride of place in the middle of the cabinet, was the best all-rounder sports cup. If I take it, someone's bound to spot it's missing, Lydia said unhappily. No, they won't. We've each taken it for a day and no one has ever noticed, Anne replied. Besides, no one's going to bother with a sports cup in the middle of the winter term. But it's stealing, Lydia whispered. Not if you only take it for one day. Besides, do you want to be in the group or don't you? Anne frowned, folding her arms across her chest. And that was the problem, because they both knew that Lydia wanted to belong. She wanted to belong in the Cosmics very much indeed, and Anne was the leader of the Cosmics. So she had the final say as to who could join and who couldn't. Lydia looked at the sports cup which glinted in the fluorescent lights of the assembly hall. So each of you has already done this, Lydia said, chewing on her bottom lip. I've already said that, haven't I? Frankie has. Maxine has. So has Bertie. I have. Everyone has. Now, are you going to do it or not? Anne flicked her wavy blonde hair out of her eyes with an impatient hand. She began to stroll up and down, casting Lydia a studied, careful look. Anne, I'm not sure. The sudden noise of the assembly hall doors opening was like the crack of a whip behind them, and scooted to the side of the nearby stage and ducked down only just in time. Lydia wasn't so lucky. Oh, Bally, the caretaker, popped his head round the door, looking first one way, then the other. Oi! What are you doing in the hall? You know it's out of bounds after school. Oh, Bally entered the hall and stood by the door, glaring at Lydia. He was a tall man, as thin as a noodle, with a face that was so sallow it was just about the same colour. His grey-white hair, what there was of it, waved and wandered all over the sides of his head. Flecks of black here and there in his hair made it look as if black pepper had been sprinkled liberally into a mound of salt. Well, what are you waiting for? Christmas? Snapped old Bolly. Lydia glanced at Anne, who was squatting down at the side of the stage, and Anne placed a finger over her lips and shook her head. Sorry, Miss the Balling, Lydia said quickly. Shift then, old Baldy said with impatience. Lydia quickly headed for the door furthest away from the caretaker. If he chose to report her, Lydia knew she'd be in major trouble, but she couldn't regret the interruption. Luckily, it seemed as if she was going to get away with it. Old Baldy switched the lights off. Lydia made her way along the quad parameter towards the school gates. She glanced over her shoulder as she walked. Old Baldy was still watching her, his arms folded and a scowl deepening the lines of his face. Then he crossed the quad and walked away in the opposite direction. Lydia slowed down but didn't stop. She heard the assembly hall doors click open behind her. Lydia! Lydia, wait! Anne hissed from behind her. With a silent laugh, Lydia stopped walking and turned round. Anne ran up to her. Oh, Baldy's a real long streak of misery, Anne muttered. Lydia smiled. She'd never heard that expression before. She looked at Anne and her smile faded away to nothing. She looked around. The caretaker had disappeared. He's probably racing back for his tea, Lydia thought, dejected. She'd been hoping he'd march her right out of school, lock the gates behind her. That would have been so wonderful, Lydia sniffed, hugging her coat tight round her. The freezing November wind was trying to blow straight through her. She glanced up at the mid-grey sky. She hadn't seen one scrap of clear, sunny sky since she and her family had moved to Yorkshire. At least, well, that's what it felt like. It's all right. Oh, Baldy's gone, Anne said. Come on, now's your chance. Oh, Anne, are you sure I won't get caught? Lydia said. She didn't walk back to the assembly hall. Her feet didn't want to move. Of course she won't. We didn't. Anne's smile was broad. Does that mean you're going to do it? In the long pause that followed, the howling wind around them began to drop. A sudden thought had Lydia smiling inwardly with intense relief. How do I get the cup out of the cabinet? Surely the cabinet would be locked. Lydia fought to keep the grin off her face. Maybe she could get out of it after all. We cosmics, we know a little secret about the cabinet, Anne said excitedly. Lydia's heart sank down to the heels of her socks. If you bang upwards on the underside of the cabinet, the left door will fly open and then you can reach in and you can get the cup. And when you shut the cabinet door afterwards, it'll lock automatically. Anne, can't I do something else? I'll do anything else. If I get caught and my mum and dad find out... Lydia trailed off miserably. She dreaded to think of what they'd do. Anne's eyes narrowed. Lydia, you've got a decision to make. I thought we'd be doing you a favour by letting you join our group. But if you don't want to belong, that's up to you. The choice is yours. And with that, Anne marched away. Anne, wait, please. Lydia was left staring after her helplessly. As Lydia watched, Anne strode out of the school gates and turned up the road. Lydia looked around. She'd never heard the school so quiet. Now that the wind had died down, there was no sound at all, just a rasp of her own anxious breathing. Lydia walked slowly back to the assembly hall, her feet dragging. Closing the door very quietly behind her, she automatically reached out for the light switch. Her hand was on it before she remembered old Baldy. Lydia, what are you doing? She muttered to herself now. The hall was in semi-darkness with the lights off. There was just enough daylight coming in from outside through the high windows to cast silver-grey streaks of light throughout the assembly hall. Lydia started to walk across the trophy cabinet, but her shoes clicked and echoed on the wooden parquet floor like tap shoes. Raising her heels, Lydia tiptoed the rest of the way, wincing as even the soles of her shoes still made a noise. And there was the sports cup. It now looked dull and shadowy in the half-light of the hall. What should I do? Lydia whispered. If she took the cup and put it back without being found out, she'd be part of the Cosmics. Anne had started the Cosmics, and it hadn't taken Lydia long to learn that everybody wanted to belong to Anne's group. Lydia suspected it had more to do with the fact that Anne's dad owned a local electronics shop than for any other reason. It meant that Anne always brought the latest gadgets from her dad's shop for the Cosmics to use. Digital voice recorders, voice-activated smartphones, MP3 players, and the latest computer games. She'd even once brought in a state-of-the-art camcorder, which was about a quarter of the size of a standard paperback book. Anne had them all. Lydia didn't care about that so much. She wanted to belong to the Cosmics because then she'd be in the same secret club as Frances, or Frankie, as she made everyone call her. Anne, Barty, Maxine, they were all right. Although Anne was a bit too bossy for Lydia's liking, but Frankie was the real reason Lydia wanted to join the Cosmics. Lydia really liked Frankie. Frankie had volunteered to take care of Lydia from Lydia's first day at Cullivale School, and now they were best friends. It felt like they'd been best friends forever, instead of just for 3 weeks. Lydia had found someone like her, Someone who loved comics and carrots. Someone who hated anything with cabbage in it and who thought the circus clowns were boring. So, take the cup, Lydia told herself. It was the only way to keep her new friends, to become part of this strange new school. If she didn't take it, Anne would delight in telling everyone just how much of a chicken she was. Lydia could hear Anne already. All talk, and she couldn't even take the cup. These Londoners. Lydia sighed deeply. Whichever way she turned, there seemed to be nowhere to go. She stared at the cup cabinet, hating it. Get it over with, she thought miserably. But to steal. But to lose her friends. It was getting darker now. Lydia shivered. She gathered all of her rapidly disappearing courage like a winter coat. Stepping forward, she pulled at the cabinet doors. They were locked. Taking a deep breath, and with the fingers of her left hand crossed, Lydia banged right fist upwards to meet the underside of the cup cabinet. The gas door sprung silently open, just as Anne had said it would. Oh no, Lydia said, dismayed. She jumped as the tiny words echoed to fill the assembly hall. Lydia's left finger slowly uncrossed. The sports cup was now almost completely shrouded in shadow. Lydia stretched out her hand. Tentatively, she touched the handle of the cup. She couldn't get a good grip on it. Her fingers slid down it and her palms were sweating. Lydia took another step forward. She wiped her perspiring forehead, wiped her wet hand on a school coat. Her heart was about to burst out of her chest.